I was born in Seremban, Negeri Sembilan. At that time, I was the 9th baby to be born. But of course, eventually my parents had 13 children, 6 boys and 7 girls. So I'm the 9th in the family. My father was a government servant in the Ministry of Agriculture. My mother was a housewife. They both are gone. Because of his position in the government, my father was transferred to many towns in Malaya at that time. But eventually we settled in Selangor, and I went to school, my secondary school, at Tunku Kusha College. So, of course, the most memorable part of my education in Malaysia was at Tunku Kusha College, where I think a lot of the psyche, the individual in me was already molded by my being in TKC. No, I didn't. So that one I have to go back to the university. And so at the end of high school, I got a Colombo Plan scholarship to go to New Zealand to study physics. And when I was studying physics was when I discovered astronomy and astrophysics. So it wasn't as if from a young age I was already interested, because at that time there were no astronomy books in the library. I know we had a library, but certainly there were no books on space or on astronomy. So I didn't know about the sky in astronomy, except from a poetic aesthetic sense. I loved English literature when I was young, so there was some poetry that referred to the heavens, as in the sky, which totally. I was totally inspired by the sky purely through poetry, but it was not like through science. And until today, I remember that poetry in my head. This is a poem by William Butler Yeats. It's called The Cloths of Heaven, and it starts like this. Had I the heavens embroidered cloths, enwrought with gold and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night, light and half light, I would spread the cloths beneath your feet. But I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, for you tread on my dreams. So that was a poetic aspect of it. But of course, in the beginning, it compares, what he can give to his love in terms of the cloths of heaven. And I was totally struck by this romantic idea of the cloths of heaven. But I don't think I was going to pursue astronomy based on that until I discovered physics. But even in school, I had fallen in love with physics. I was not forced, I was told to do science. And of the sciences, I loved physics most. Of course, at that time, everybody was inspired by Einstein's E equals mc squared, I was too. And that's why I fell in love with physics. And because of that, I decided to pursue physics at university. So as I said, when I had this Colombo Plan, when I was offered the Colombo Plan scholarship in New Zealand, I decided to do physics. And it's only in my 3rd year that I was really exposed to the details of the sky in terms of the astrophysics. And then I knew that this was a field it would suit me, because I could have done solid state physics or nuclear physics, quantum physics, but I had come one circle, that here was the cloths of heaven that I would be studying from the scientific point of view, while at the same time, astronomy and astrophysics still had all the elements of philosophy, culture, religion, and of course, the most exciting part of science. And so I knew I had found the perfect field for myself. So until today, I still love the arts, and loving arts through astrophysics or astronomy is very natural. Two things are so natural. Right, right. And there is no argument about do you believe in God? Is there God? There is no need to go into that sort of argument, I went to University of Otago in Dunedin in New Zealand. So I chose to major in astrophysics when I was doing my first degree. And that was the reason why I wanted to pursue a PhD or a postgraduate degree in it. I was actually, according to the Colombo plan, supposed to go to teachers training, and from there go teach, of course. But I could not imagine myself teaching school children. I could not, because in my mind I was always wanting to explore science, and I had at that time even dreams that I could make big scientific breakthroughs. Maybe not a Nobel Prize, but yeah, I wanted to make scientific breakthroughs. And I knew you couldn't do that through teaching in schools. So I did register at the university in Christchurch, where I was supposed to register, do teachers training, a one-year teachers training course. I just registered, but within 2 days, I felt this is a big mistake. And I took a big step. I just went back to Dunedin. I spoke to to one of the professors and said, I really want to do a PhD. But at that time, I was just talking about masters. PhD came later. And he was very, very encouraging. So I decided to stay on, and I wrote to Colombo Plan and said, I really have to do this. And for them, it was quite simple, actually, thank God. They said to me, we can allow you to do this postgraduate program if you can prove to us that you will be employed in Malaysia with this postgraduate degree. And so, and it's just things, well, with what we call the planets were aligned. At the same time, I had received a letter from University Kebangsaan Malaysia to ask whether I was interested to be a lecturer in physics, because the universities at that time, that was early 70s, they were looking for lecturers because so many universities were coming up. And they were looking for lecturers, and they had heard about me, and they asked whether I would join UKM. And because they were the first university to approach me, I said yes. And so that was also quite coincidental. It wasn't planned or anything like that. And so with that letter, I was able to pursue my master's stroke PhD. So while I was doing my master's, the professor said to me, actually, with what was going on, I could just convert to a PhD. And so yeah, I was very happy to do that. And so that is how I was allowed to do my PhD of all things astrophysics. The country was not looking at astrophysics. The country was still looking for lecturers in the university. And I don't think they cared that time that I was doing astrophysics. Not until I went home. So, even though people said to me, why would you do astrophysics, when I was first thinking about it, because you're not going to get a job when you get home. But to me, it didn't matter that if I didn't get a job in Malaysia, I was sure that the world was my oyster, and therefore I would get a job somewhere. And it was just, I said, coincidence that UKM came to me and offered me a job. So it all happened at the right time. Right, so I started lecturing at university at UKM. I was lecturing physics. I did try to teach astrophysics and astronomy, but I was told that the university did not have, the university's thrust in research was not astrophysics, and therefore they told me to change my field. And being a good girl, I had to see how I could change my field. And I thought, okay, maybe I could look at solar physics. Not even solar physics. I could look at solar energy. That was the closest to a heavenly body that I could think of at that time. But after about 2 years of trying to find out about solar energy and what was that research group doing in UKM, because I had to join a research group, I was frustrated. I was not going anywhere. And maybe already that time, I felt that I had to exercise my own leadership, and I wasn't going to be able to do that if it was a field that I was new to. And that was when I decided I'm going to try and still pursue astrophysics and astronomy. So I told my head of department at that time that I wanted to continue in astronomy and astrophysics, and I think he was sympathetic, but rather concerned that this might mean not the end of my career, but my career would not take off, because if astrophysics was not a thrust, I would not be able to get research funding and things like that. So I said, it's fine. I did not worry about it. So I said that the important thing is to establish the field in UKM. And so I did that, because at the back of my head, I knew that if I wanted to establish astronomy and astrophysics, it wasn't in the university. I realized very early on that the reason nobody knew about astrophysics was because nobody understood it. Nobody knew what it was about. And the first step I needed to take was to create an awareness, create knowledge about what it is. That's what I did. I went through a whole series of public lectures. But my break came in 1986, when Comet Halley was back in the sky, and everybody was excited about Comet Halley. You were born, right? 1986. In 1986, the society was excited. The whole world was excited about Comet Halley. So I used Comet Halley as my first attack, where I said, you know about Comet Halley? And everybody says, yes, 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 because it's all in the newspapers. So I talked about Comet Halley and how the astronomers managed to predict 75 years ago when Comet Halley was going to come back. Everybody got excited. We had an exhibition, and that was when the government became aware that the public was interested. Before this, I think people had the impression that the public's not interested. So with the exhibition on Comet Halley, and of course all my public lectures, there was that awareness, and that was when that time the Prime Minister's department under the Islamic Pusat Islam Center, they gave me a place for exhibition, and thousands of people came. So it was ample proof that the publics were ready to absorb or to know about astronomy. And that was when this planetarium was born. The idea of this planetarium was born as far back as in 1986, because we needed a place where we could do public education. And public education is, of course, best done in a planetarium. But it was not till much later, 1989 or so, before we talked about a budget for it. And when there was a budget, then the Prime Minister's Department got me seconded from UKM to the Prime Minister's Department to set up this this building. I mean, I tell you, every brick in this building knows me, I think. Because I was here every day and talking to the contractors, don't cut down this tree, because it's 100 years old. And just setting up the projectors, which is, you can't see it, but it's behind me, took, I mean, so much exact. It was the specifications for making the building ready for the projector, as well as the star. There was a film projector, there was a star projector, and the finishing was exacting, and the contractors cannot wrap their heads around this, Why does it have to be 1 centimeter, accuracy? Or even the dome, it had to be accurate. Even though it was 20 meters, it had to be accurate up to a few centimeters. Again, our contractors do not have this kind of accuracy. And I was always, well, I wasn't fighting, but always trying to emphasize that you must have this kind of accuracy, otherwise, the stars would be accurate or something like that. So it was my first big project, and I so love this building. As I said, this building, every brick knows me, as I go up the staircase, I would look at the staircase. Yeah, it should be here, not there. And I look at the landscape. I wanted it to be in keeping with the space theme. And we had sculptures, everything. So I wanted to build something that as soon as you enter, you know you are in a different environment. And I wanted this celestial atmosphere to be here on Earth when you come in. So that means not the streets, the little lanes were called after planets, for instance. Yeah, so that was my big dream come true. This was my first dream come true. Yeah, the curriculum at the department was obvious, because then I was teaching physics at the university. So it was a matter of me proposing new courses in astrophysics, and new, what I call them, multidisciplinary, where people from multi-faculties could attend these classes. So, of course, astrophysics was only open to physics students, but I also decided to create courses, astronomy courses, which of course can be open to people from the faculty of Islam, from the sociology faculty, or any student can learn about astronomy. You don't need physics and maths to do astronomy, but of course you need physics and maths to do astrophysics. And so I also was aware that by doing that, I was building that base for understanding amongst more and more people. So going to Pusat Islam, or Islamic Center, was almost a natural step for me, because I was already pushing Islamic astronomy at the university. And so going from university into government was not such a strange step at all. It was not alien, as they say. It was natural. So my involvement at the international level, in the international arena, started when I was in university. Because there was nothing here in Malaysia, almost no books, no resources at all. I relied a lot because I was doing astronomy in New Zealand. I already made my international connections there. So I used those connections to get them to help me, especially at that time, the International Astronomical Union, where they gave me books, slides, and all things like that to support my lectures. But the best thing they did for me was they gave me grants to travel. They gave me grants to travel to conferences where I met many, many people, and they gave me grants to observe. So I managed to observe at Bosca Observatory, for instance, in Indonesia. That was where I did quite a lot of my research. So, I couldn't do research here because there were no facilities, but yeah, my friends gave me grants. I made sure I got grants that brought me overseas. I was already then very active internationally, but that didn't take me to the UN yet. What took me to the UN was that under the Prime Minister's department, after the planetarium was built and when it was already operational, they decided to call the division that I was in charge of, they called it Space Science Division. So I was still under the Prime Minister's department at that time. And at the same time, the government was also aware of the fact that things were starting to really move in space. Things were starting to happen, especially at the United Nations. So the government, the Prime Minister's department at that time, decided that we would engage in the negotiations about space in the United Nations. And so I started going to the United Nations as the head of delegation to represent Malaysia. This was really fun because then it opened me to an entirely new world. Very strange, but very exciting, where it's not the science that matters in the UN, but how you use the science, how you negotiate in order to make sure that the science benefits all. Now, all humanity. Of course, I was at that time purely focused on what benefits Malaysia. I knew that, of course. This was for the public, for the future of Malaysia. But this, by being in the UN, I was forced to think globally. And that's why I say it was very exciting. And for some reason, people noticed me. And, they got me to be in committees, to lead discussions. And, it was quite natural for me to say yes to all of those. And I said I had got the attention of the people in the UN, the staff in the UN, as well as member states, people who were coming from the US, from Canada, from Japan, from China. So they had started to notice me. And so when the post of the director of the Office for Outer Space Affairs came up, I was one of those people who they thought maybe we could, get her. In fact, it was the New York headquarters, the UN headquarters in New York, that first approached Malaysia. They didn't even approach me in the beginning. They approached our ambassador, our permanent representative in New York, and asked if I could go into the running, be part of those to be considered. So when I for the post, for the position of the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs. The first time I got the call from our ambassador, it was very late at night, because we have this 12-hour difference. I thought, oh no, I knew what job he was talking about, but I didn't think I was suitable for the job. And he said, never mind, I will fax. At the time it was fax. I will fax you the job description and look at it. He says, don't say no yet. And so the fax came and I looked at it. And one of the things that discouraged me was it said that this person must have good political judgment. And I thought, good political judgment, that's not me. I've never been like this. I'm purely an academic, I thought to myself. Although, of course, in the UN, I had so enjoyed doing all these political negotiations and understanding the politics of the different countries and how those politics affected their decisions in space, whether it's the legal part or the scientific part. I knew all of that. I had experience, but I didn't think I excelled in it, So when I saw the fact that they wanted somebody with good political judgment, of course, I think being a woman, you're a bit more, you're very modest maybe. So I decided, nah, that's not me. It doesn't describe me. And then the next day when the ambassador called me, I said, no, I don't think this it fitted me, He said, never mind. Why don't you just send your CV? Because, it makes sense because it's not up to me to decide, what my experience was. So I thought, yeah, what's no big deal. I could send my CV, and I did that. I sent my CV, and I forgot about it entirely. Then a few months later, I was traveling in the US, as it turned out, when I got an email asking me, could I describe what I do in my position as this person in Malaysia, And I thought, oh, okay, this has come back again. And I was traveling with a friend at that time, and he said to me, what's the big deal? You just describe, what you do. And he says, look, you just tell me and I'll type it for you. And I thought, yeah, okay. So he typed it out for me. And then, okay, shall we send it? Yeah, oh, well, I was thinking nothing would happen, Click, it went. And I again thought nothing about it until one day I saw this letter saying, could you come for interview? Oh, okay. This was something that I hadn't expected at all. And it was something I had to take action on. Oh, I'm in trouble because you're not allowed to, as a civil servant, I wasn't allowed to apply for a job overseas without going through the ministry, to the head of department and things like that. And I thought, oh, okay, if I'm going to consider this, I'm going to have to explain to somebody. And so I went to the minister and I explained to him, I said, I didn't apply for this job, but it just so happened that they kept being interested in me. And we are here, and the minister thought this was fantastic. I mean, we are being considered, like the last 2 or 3 people. He said to me, you should look at this seriously. And I said, they want me to go for interview now, He says, look, just go for the interview. And I said, yeah, but I have been to Vienna many times. Yes, he said, go to Vienna, find out whether you would like to live there or not. Once I went there for the interview, I remember telling the Director General at that time, I said, yeah, this is a great job. I know what it's about, but I have to get my government's permission in order to take this position. And that was the end. And again, I heard rumors that they were actually more in favor of another candidate. As it turned out, she was from the US. I thought, okay, the US, there's such a big space program and all that. There's no way I could compete with that. But then another, I think it was another 1 or 2 months, I got a call again from the ambassador. Remember, I started with the ambassador. Now the ambassador is back again on the phone saying, Mazlan, apparently there's still the Secretary General's office is the one that's interested in you, even though the DG of Vienna had actually chosen another person. And the SG's office has overturned this. And they're still asking if you are available. And I thought, oh God, this is never going to end. And again, I went back to the minister and said, look, they want to offer it to me. What do I do? And the minister at that time said, I have no choice. I will bring it to cabinet. And he brought it to cabinet, and it was refused. And the prime minister at the time said, no, I mean, Mazlan is very busy doing all kinds of projects. No, the UN has the whole world. Let them go and look at somebody else in this world. She has many projects in Malaysia. When I heard this, and a lot of people who knew about it was thinking, this was such a big opportunity. And they told me, you should see the PM and explain what this is about. And I did. I went to the PM and said, this is a big opportunity for Malaysia. I mean, by my being in the UN, it would take me to a different level of information, networking, which would not be available to us, even if we asked for it. And then he changed his mind, and I did go in the end. I went, loved the job, loved the job. Because, as I said, I had political judgment after all. Good political judgment after all. At that time, the Secretary General in in New York, who was instrumental in bringing me, was Kofi Annan. His office at that time. The DG was, I can't remember who the DG was now. So there's a DG in Vienna, and then there's the SG in New York. They're two different offices, the same organization. We're still the Secretariat to the United Nations. And so I stayed there for 2 years, and then there was an instruction. I call it a walking order for me to go home, to come home. But that was what I had agreed to, right? But this time the agreement was that I had to come back in order to set up the National Space Agency. So I knew that this was a responsibility for me. I had, not that I agreed to come home in the beginning, to set up the agency. There was nothing like that, but I had agreed to come home. Okay, I took my position first time in 1999, October 1999. In the UN. And so after 2.5 years, I extended it by a bit because I wanted to finish the series of meetings, and the series of meetings ended in June. So I said to the Malaysian government, you have to let me be here until at least end of June so I can finish this series of meetings, and then I start my position in July or so. So it was a big deal for me to say goodbye to everyone. And everyone's saying, you've just been here 2 years and then you are leaving. Well, I say, had some responsibility in Malaysia. So I came back, set up the National Space Agency. And, I was here for 5 years. And in that time, I worked like crazy. I've set up this beautiful planetarium. Then I went on to set up the National Space Center, the observatory, the astronaut program, launched satellites, in those short 5 years. By the end of 5 years, I realized that I was not going to make further impact. That things had the environment had changed, not the physical environment, but the political environment had changed, and that I would not be making any impact. In fact, maybe I was preventing the space sector from advancing because I what I had in mind was not in keeping with what the ministry had in mind. Yeah, we will leave it at that. So and at that time, another coincidence, my successor was actually retiring in that year. And because he's older than me, he was older than me, so I was at the age where actually I could succeed him. So you can imagine, my successor became my, what is that word? The one before me. I can't remember the word now, which is quite strange. So I went back. So, and they had also actually actively tried to get me back because they knew that I was retiring and maybe I would like to come back. So they again actively sought me. And so I thought it was a good time. I had to leave Malaysia. I just had to leave Malaysia, and hoping everybody would forget me, you know. And I said, okay, I'm going to act. No. As I said, you know, I had a conflict with the vision of the ministry. And so I left, and very happily so. Thinking that I still might come back in a couple of years if things had changed, but I loved that job so much, which I knew I loved the job so much, I decided to go on until I retired. Um, Sexism in terms of my gender, I never felt it. You know, if I failed at something, let's say I was going for, I pitched for something, and let's say that failed, I never thought of it as, that's because I'm woman. I always went back to what was wrong with my presentation. Maybe I got the facts were not strong enough. Maybe I wasn't passionate enough. So I never, this, I never felt that it had nothing to do with my gender. I was always gender blind, I think. But and even bureaucracy was not an issue. You know, you have to know how to get around bureaucracy. Even in the UN, you know, people said that it is an 800-pound gorilla. There's nothing, you could do nothing to push that gorilla. No, I never felt it. And there were always ways by which you could negotiate to get whatever is necessary, because it wasn't always about my agenda or about me. It was always about the organization, you know. So in that way, it was not difficult at all. Even in Malaysia too, I never felt this big bureaucracy against me. And if it was going to be a problem, I knew how to overcome it. And of course, especially in the five years when I came back, there were a lot of bureaucratic challenges, but I still managed to do all those things in 5 years because there are people you can talk to, especially, you know, who can facilitate. I got divorced as a result of all these activities. You can imagine it had a great strain on my marriage, and I had a partner who couldn't understand. He couldn't understand why I was doing all these things, and he thought that whatever I did would undermine his own standing in university and society. And because he believed that, we got divorced. That's the explanation to it affected my marriage, of course. So now I'm single, and it means that I can do what I need to do. You know, before you always had to consider what would this other person think, and a lot of the time I was conscious of the fact that I couldn't be more successful than my partner because he had that sort of attitude. But now I don't but now I don't care. You can edit that out. Now I don't care. I am a free agent, and I could be with whom I like, wherever I like, for how long I like. No, it's a gift from God. This space of my life where I can be myself. Oh, I've always loved mountain climbing. When I was in New Zealand, I did a lot of, in the summer, as a group, we used to climb those mountains. We used to go trekking. But when I came back to Malaysia, I also joined a group that also went sort of mountain climbing. But then after a while, I went into marathons, running, and yeah, when did I go back to mountain climbing? So yeah, only well, the expeditions that I organized, for instance, to Malaya Basin and all, did involve some climbing or staying in the mountains. So I never quite gave that up, but I didn't do any serious mountain climbing until after I came back from Vienna, where I decided, you know what, I would like to climb some mountains. I have two wonderful children who are my best friends until today. My son is in the US. He started out as an aerospace engineer. He always says, no, 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 I'm not following my mom. I want to be an aerospace engineer. But in the end, he got fed up with a few things and he went to do his MBA, and now he's a banker. I said to him, I'm not going to tell my friends you're a banker, okay? You can edit that out, but yeah, he's a banker. And my daughter, she grew up to be, because, a lot of that time I was single. And so I gave her every opportunity to be herself. So then she started looking at drama and film, because she had nobody to say, no, you can't do this and you can't do that. I was, very open. So she's now a sociologist. So she did sociology, analytical sociology. She's living in Sweden, doing her PhD in analytical sociology. Yeah, I didn't feel that at any time at all that I had to encourage them to be like me. Oh, good grief, no. Or to be interested in the things I am interested in. So they had freedom to do whatever they liked. The only thing was I encouraged my daughter when she was going for her postgraduate degree. What I encouraged her was this, that she did not have to feel that she had to do her degree in an English-speaking country. And so when she was thinking of a course in masters, I said, look, you speak French, you speak German, go and do this in continental Europe and explore that part of the world. Of course, she was studying in Vienna, but explore it in other parts. Sometimes I don't think I'm such a great mother. This is for all the mothers out there, because you think you haven't spent enough time. You haven't given everything. It's not just time, whether it's money or whatever you think is, or you're always short. Mothers, you're always short. And I've been there. But as I said, this is God's will. That my children turned out to be okay, and we still love each other very much. We still want to spend a lot of time together. The thing I'm most proud about are my children. Uh, they are my best friends, and they've turned out to quite well. I think they have their own careers. Um, I have two grandchildren whom I'm extremely proud of. And so, because as a mother, you always think that you never do everything that you have to do for your children. For the mothers out there, you never think that you are enough as a mother. But I think what is important is to impart values to your children. In the end, it's not about how much time, how many presents you give, but the values that you impart, and also yourself as an example of who a person should be. As far as I'm concerned, God knows best, that you undergo hard times, and I have undergone hard times, but it's only because God knows best. He has a plan for you, and my being who I am now, where I am, what I am, to me, it's been planned by God. It's all God's will, and I am a willing, I'm willing, if He to be the best, wherever He puts me or whatever He throws at me. Mentors, I don't have mentors in a sense as somebody who brought me and within my field. Of course, there was nobody in my field, but I had a dean, for instance, in the university, who was always very supportive, even though my field wasn't really important to everybody else. But he could see me as a person, and he gave me opportunities to, head to organize conferences. Even though I was one of the youngest lecturers there, he would say, Mazlan, I would like you to chair that committee. And I'm like, who, me? I've just come back 2 years, But he was adamant, and he said, no, you do it. So it gave me leadership roles in the faculty. But then when I went to the Prime Minister's department, that was the ultimate, in a leadership role. Here I was thrown into a leadership role, not only intellectually, but then I had to take care, as I said, of project management at the highest, at the national level, quite early in my life. And that was due to the Prime Minister's department at that time. And then throwing me into the United Nations realm, where they thought, okay, you would lead the delegation. That again, took me to places that I never dreamed of. So there was not a mentor as such, somebody who supported me. But of course, if there was I would call a sponsor, somebody who's always making sure he gave me all the challenges of the country, that would be the Prime Minister at that time who I was serving. That was Mahathir. So the closest I have to a sponsor, what we call it a sponsor, not quite a mentor, would be the Prime Minister at that time. My advice to the young people is always that you have to find a niche wherever you are, whatever field you are. The most important thing is find a niche of who you are and where you want to be. The most valuable lesson I got in terms of management, maybe to be a leader, is when I was at the Harvard Business School, where we were told that it's not good enough to be the best. When I first heard this, because I was already quite well advanced in my career when I went to the Harvard Business School, I said, oh, we always say we have to be the best. But then the professor, Professor Potter at that time, he said, in order to make meaningful impact, it is to be unique. It's not about being the best, because by being the best, number 2 and number 3 are very close behind, and anytime they can overtake you. But when you are unique, there's nobody there competing with you. But of course, being unique also means that there's a lot of new things. You have to innovate, you have to think differently, act differently, lead differently, because you're in a new field altogether, or a new environment. And that's what it is to be unique. It's very tough, but if you find in yourself what it is that about you that is unique, then you have to move along that line and hack away at everything that's going to make it difficult for you or hard or all the obstacles. I have to say this, that even though I was a trailblazer, I always had a team of wonderful, talented people, because no, you cannot do things alone. So you said, when you are a trailblazer, you are alone. No. Even when I was a young lecturer, I was a trailblazer, but I had friends in the International Astronomical Union who made things happen for me, you know, gave me materials and all that. So I could not keep being a trailblazer at any point in my life without having this great support from people who shared my vision, or, you know, who shared the same goal. In their minds, they know that they would share the same goal. Of course, being a leader, you have to tell people what is it that needs to be done. Sure, but somebody has to do it. You can't do it alone. And you know, at every point in my career, I had great support from the people, the Ministry of Finance, from the Economic Planning unit, you know, to build this place. And so throughout my life, I had to have people like that. I could not do it alone. No regrets, meaning that there's, I never want to go back to any point in my life to do something better. You know what? I say to myself, it was the best at that time. And it was a mistake, but hopefully we all learned from the mistake. But I would not change my life in any way, even though I had bad times, I had horrible times in my life, but I would not change my life. And only because I have my 2 children now. And if I changed my life in any way, that might change the dynamic, so that maybe, I don't know, I would not get my children. No. Whatever it was, the outcome, which is it is today, I have only gratitude, you know. I feel my life is so blessed. There were times in my life when I felt that, oh God, I'm going to give up. But it was all part of God's challenge to me. And having gone through all those challenges, I'm much stronger. You know, the classic thing about what kills you makes you stronger. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Oh gosh, I believe in that. So I always tell my children, what the hell, go and make mistakes. Doesn't matter. Because you have to make mistakes. Mistakes in life, or marry the wrong person or whatever, doesn't matter. Make those mistakes, but you must take risks. My children know that Mama is the greatest risk taker. And not only am I a risk taker, I'm a risk seeker. I seek for new things. I seek for things that are risky, because it's doing that that pays dividends to being unique and doing something new. You have to take risk and look for those risks. I don't say look for opportunities, because opportunities are what people create for you. No. You have to create those opportunities for yourself, which means that you must take risks.